Hello everyone and welcome to the Highway Tabernacle Tech Team Training on ProPresenter. In this video we're going to talk about how we create an automatic 5-minute countdown. So at Highway today we have the countdown that automatically starts at 5 minutes to 10, and it does a few things. So the countdown starts at 5 minutes to 10. After 3 minutes it turns from white to yellow to let people know that we're getting close. And then at 1 minute, it'll turn from yellow to red. And also depending on when it is, we have a video that shows at the end of or toward the end of our countdown that kind of leads into our worship. So we need to start that video however long it takes so that it ends right at 10 o'clock. Okay, so we're going to do that. So what are the steps that we're going to take here to create our 5-minute countdown? And we'll go through these one at a time, but you really don't have to remember them because we'll go through this step by step when we get into ProPresenter. So we're going to actually create the 5-minute countdown in ProPresenter, and then we're going to create a theme. So we need to figure out how we want it to look on the screen. And then we're going to add that countdown to our messages. Remember that the message layer is at the very top, so no matter what is showing below it, it'll show. So we're going to add our countdown message there, and then we're going to create a macro to show that message. And the buffer video is that video that I mentioned at the end of the countdown. So we're going to add a buffer video to a specific folder, any folder that you like on your computer. And then we're going to create that smart playlist folder inside of ProPresenter to point to that buffer video folder that you created that has that video in it. And then we're going to create a macro that will automatically clear the announcements layer to show the buffer video. So when it's time to show the buffer video, we'll have a macro that will clear the announcements layer. Remember, the video is on the media layer, which is below the announcements layer. So we need to clear the announcements layer and then show the buffer video. Excuse me. And then we'll create a timer action on the worship start element. So in our playlist, we have that worship start item where we click it and it sets up the correct audience look and the macro runs. So we're going to create a timer that on that element that will automatically start. It'll go down, you'll see, it'll go down to the first slide for the worship songs. Okay, and then finally we're going to create some calendar events to run the macros that we created. So we'll create a calendar event that'll start the countdown. We'll create another calendar event that will run the macro to start the buffer video, and we'll create another calendar event that will go to this slide on the worship to start the worship right at 10 o'clock. Okay, so let's get into ProPresenter and actually do these things. All right, and I'm going to leave my camera at the top here because we're going to be working down here primarily. So the first thing we want to do is create the actual timer. So I'm going to just give myself a little more room. We're going to go here to our Timers tab and click on it. Now, when we brought in our sample content and brought in these timers, but I'm not going to use these timers, so I'm just going to delete them and start from scratch. All right, we want to add a new timer. There are 3 types of timers here, so I'll click Add Timer, and there are 3. The first is a countdown timer. This will start at whatever amount of time you give it. Okay, we're going to use this for 5 minutes. So it'll start then and count down. there's also a countdown to time. So you can say countdown to 10 a.m. So if you were to start this countdown at quarter of, it would start at quarter of and go all the way to 10. And then we have an elapsed timer. This is a count up timer. So it'll start and just tell you how long you've been going. So we're going to select the countdown timer. And we want to give it 5 minutes. So this is hours, minutes, and seconds. So we're going to set it to 5 minutes. Not 50 minutes. 5 minutes. Okay? And we're going to leave this allows overrun unchecked. This would allow you to go past, once it got to 0, would it keep going? Okay, in this case, that's what allows overrun is. So there's our timer. We're going to call it 5-minute countdown. So that's the name of our timer. Okay, and you can try it. If you just click on it, it'll show you it's starting at 5 minutes and counting down. So you can test it. Okay, let's stop that. So that's the first step. The second step is to create a theme for our timer. So we're going to come up here to our theme editor. And we're going to create a theme. Let's just create a brand new theme. We'll call it Countdown. And we'll leave the size like it is. And now we have this text element here, which is what we want. But the first thing I want to do is to make this text the full size of the container. All right, we talked about this in a previous video. So I'm going to go to the Text tab, and under Scaling, I'm going to select Text Up or Down. All right, now this is a 5-minute timer, so I'm going to put 5 minutes in here so I can see exactly what it's going to look like. So there's my 5-minute timer. All right, let's pick a font for it. I'm going to use the Impact font. You can use whatever one you like. One thing that I want to do is we want our timer text to be white, but when there's a white background, we won't be able to see it. So I'm going to add just temporarily, I'm going to add a white background. So I'll come up here and do a rectangle, I think. It's not letting me add a rounded rectangle. And I'll just put this in here like this. And we'll put the clock above it. And then I want to make this rounded rectangle white so that I can see what it's going to look like when, oh, sorry, not the text color, the shape color to be white. So that I can't see the countdown timer at all. So let's come in here. I just want to make sure I can see it when the background is white. Okay, so I selected my 5-minute countdown. I'm going to come here to Text, Stroke, and let's give it black. And let's give it about, oh, I think that's good. 3 is what I'm going to use. You can use whatever you like. I'm also going to give it a drop shadow. And I'm going to bump this up to about 7. That looks pretty good to me. So when it's a white background, it'll still show like this. That's pretty good. So now I'm going to come over here to my rounded rectangle and just delete it because I don't need it. All right, so let's put the timer where we want it. We want it on the lower left screen, lower right portion of the screen. And I'm just going to resize this so that it's about the size that I want. That's pretty good. Yeah. All right, and that's my theme. Now, we need to do one other thing. We need to link this text to our timer. Okay, this is extremely important. Otherwise, this would just show 5 all the time. So we want to link this text, and we're going to select timer 5-minute countdown. All right, now let's change some things here. Notice how big this is. We don't need, so it's showing hours, minutes, seconds, milliseconds. Well, we don't need it to show milliseconds, so we're going to select this and click on this double dash up here. That means it won't show milliseconds. It's only going to show seconds, minutes, and hours. We don't need hours. We're only counting down from 5 minutes. So let's turn off hours as well. So now it's just showing me minutes and seconds. And in fact, we're starting at 5 minutes, so we don't need 2 digits for the minutes, do we? We only need 1. So let's select this 1M here. So now it'll show 1 digit, 2 digits for seconds. Okay? So far so good. Now we have our timer linked to the text on this slide in this theme. All right, let's talk about color triggers. When it starts at 5 minutes, we want the color to be white. So I'm actually going to add that color in here. So click Color Triggers. And then we're going to set that this is actually minutes, seconds. Notice it's 00.00. Okay, so this is minutes because of the time we have selected up here. So at 5 minutes, 0 seconds, I want the text color to be white. That'll make sure that it's white when it starts. And then, and this is, up for discussion. You can use whatever colors and whatever time you want. I would like to change it to yellow. Let's pick, gold, yellow. Change it to yellow when it gets to 3 minutes. Okay, you could pick 2 minutes, you could not use it at all. It's totally up to you. Okay, so I'm deciding that when it gets to 3 minutes, we're going to change the text to yellow. And then when it gets, we'll add one more. When it gets to 1 minute, we're going to change the text to red. And I want kind of a, red. Okay, and then finally, you don't have to do this, but I usually say when it gets to 0, change the color back to white. All right, so those are the triggers that we've set up. It'll be white when it starts, then it'll turn yellow, then it'll turn red, and then it'll be white again at the very, very end when it's done counting. And that's it for our theme. Our theme is now ready to go. Okay, let's go back to the show. So the next step is to create a message to show this countdown timer. So we're going to come over here to our messages, and we're going to add a new message. Remember, we did this earlier when we created an actual message that we showed on the screen. But this time, instead of creating a message, we're going to add a token. So the token we're going to add, if I can click this download, is timers 5-minute countdown. So the 5-minute countdown will now show as part of this message. And it's going to use this theme, whatever theme we select. So I want to select my Highway Countdown theme. So now it's going to use this theme to show this timer. And when do I want to dismiss it? Do I want to manually say stop showing it? Not for the timer. I want it to stop showing after the timer expires. Okay, so that's it for the message. And we can show this. Let's come up here and start our rolling announcements. Actually, let me come over here and start our rolling announcements. We'll go to live stream. And now if I show this, remember under pre-service, just as a reminder, under pre-service, we said show messages on the live stream screen and show messages on the outside screen. Okay, so here I'm on my live stream screen, and if I click show, it's going to show the countdown and it's going to start counting. All right, so that's how we get the countdown onto the screen. We use that theme that we set up, and we're actually running this countdown. You'll see it's running this 5-minute countdown timer. Okay, because we're connected to it from here. So I'll click hide and it'll go away. All right. So now we want to be able to show this automatically. We don't want to have to come into messages and click show. So to do that, we're going to create a macro. So let's come over here to macros, and we'll add a new macro. We'll call it start countdown. And what's it going to do? Right click on it. Let's give it a nice color. Something we haven't used. Is there a color we haven't used? Let's do like a pink, I think. Pink is kind of nice. Okay, so before we add anything to here, I want to go back to my messages. This is called new message. I forgot I didn't change it. Okay, so we're going to change this. Just double click on it. Let's call it 5-minute countdown. That's the name of the message. And now when we go to macros, we can right click on our start countdown macro, add action, message, 5-minute countdown. So when you start this macro, it'll start the 5-minute countdown. There you go. So now we have a macro to automatically start our countdown. Okay, pretty cool. All right, so let's clear all that. Next step is to create a folder. So now we have the countdown showing. Now we want to be able to put that video in there. Okay, and you actually have it. If you go to media, we're going to do it a little differently here, but if you go to media, this is that buffer video. It's 1minute 27 seconds. Okay, but let's do it the way that we actually do it at Highway. So I'm going to close this for now. No, I'll tell you what. If you go to your training folder, so the training material folder, you have a folder here called Countdown Buffer Video. And in there you'll find that video, that same one. It's 1minute and 27 seconds. So just remember it's under your ProPresenter Training Start folder, Countdown Buffer Video. That's where it is. All right. So back here in ProPresenter, let's create a brand new smart playlist that points to that folder. So for me, it's on my D drive, ProPresenter Training Start, Countdown Buffer Video. Okay, that's you're not going to see anything because you're just selecting the folder, but go ahead and select folder. Now you'll see just that video. So what's going to happen here is this. We're going to create a macro that will look for this specific folder and then play the first video that's in it. So when we're setting up our countdown, we really only want one video in here. Okay? So now that we have this countdown buffer video playlist item in our media, now we can come back in here and create a new macro. So we'll create a new macro, and we'll call this Start Countdown Buffer Video. All right, and I made a capital. I'm going to rename this, get rid of my capital T. All right, so right click, let's give it that same pink color so that we know it's all part of the same thing. So we're going to add an action here, and under the action, we're going to select Media Playlist, and then it's going to show those playlist items that we have over here. Okay, so add action, Media Playlist, Countdown Buffer Video. And then it's going to ask us, it's just going to show that that's the playlist that we want. Okay, so there's the symbol for it. So watch what happens now when I click on here. I select it, and there it is. My video's playing. But we can't see it because we're on pre-service. Okay, so we're going to take care of that with the countdown, because this is right. The countdown, it should be on pre-service, but not to worry, we'll fix it. So it started the video, we just didn't see it on our live stream lobby. In fact, let's do that now. Let's take a look at that pre-service look. And you'll notice here under pre-service, we don't have any media showing. But we need that media to show that video, don't we? So let's select that. Same with our outside screens. We're going to show media on the outside screens. Okay? So there you go. That's set up now so that we're showing media for pre-service on live stream and outside screens. I missed that when we set up our audience looks. Okay, so we're here. We're in our rolling announcements, and we have our countdown showing. But now it's time to show our buffer video. So I'll select the buffer video macro, and let's see what happens. Okay, the video starts, but I'm still seeing the rolling announcements. Why is that? Because the announcements layer is still being shown. So when we start this buffer video, we also want to clear the announcements layer. So let's add that as well. So come down here to the macro, add an action, clear announcement. All right, so let's start over. So we'll start here, do our pre-service, start our rolling announcements, and then come down here and start our countdown. All good. Now it's time for the video. So when I click this, it should clear the announcements layer and show my video, which it does. Very good. All right, so this is just going to count down all the way to 0. Now when it gets below 3, it should change color, right? So we'll see that. And I'm going to pause the video and start it just before we get to the 3-minute mark. All right, so here we are just before the 3-minute mark. So when it gets below 3 minutes, this should change to yellow. And it did. Okay, and then when it gets to 1 minute, it should change to red. All right, so I'm not going to wait for that. So we've got our macros now working so that we can start the countdown and we can start the countdown buffer video like we want. The next thing I want to do is to set up that timer on the worship slide so that it'll automatically start the worship. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and clear this. Let's go. Let me close my media down here. We won't need that anymore. So here I am on my worship. So what I want to do is add a timer so that it's a go to next timer. So what that means is that when that timer starts, it'll automatically go to the next slide. In this case, it'll be the first slide in our worship. And I just noticed that I have this macro on here. I don't need it. So I'm going to remove the macro because the macro is actually part of this worship start. So anyway, let's add a go to next timer here. So right here where it says go to next timer, and I'm going to make this very short. I'm going to make it like 0.2 seconds and click OK. So when I click on this, it'll automatically come down and select this first slide because it's going to the next slide. So let's see that in action. So I'll click on it, and after 0.2 seconds, it comes down here and it automatically selects the first worship slide. Okay? The reason we're doing this is because I want to set up a calendar event that will automatically call this slide, which means that no matter which worship song is first, it'll automatically go to that very first worship song. Okay? And that's really all we need to do to set up the countdown timer. We've got this all set up. So the next thing to do is to create some calendar events to start these macros. So I need a calendar event to start this countdown right at 5 minutes to 10. And then I need another calendar event to start the buffer video macro as soon as I need to, so that it ends right at 10 o'clock. So remember, the countdown video, or this video, was 1 minute 27 seconds. So we want to start this calendar event 1 minute 27 seconds before 10 o'clock so that it ends right at 10 o'clock. And then we're going to create a third calendar event that will call this slide to automatically start the countdown. Okay? So, first steps first. The calendar events are here under View, Calendar. Okay, so View Calendar, here's the what you're going to get. Make sure that if you're setting up your calendar events, you want the calendar enabled. Okay, otherwise it just won't do anything. All right, so we're going to create our first event. I'll click the plus sign, and the event, we'll call it, let me see, where do I change the name of it? Right here. We're going to call it Start 5 Minute Countdown. How about that? And then under Schedule, we want it to be every Sunday. So it's going to repeat every Sunday, and it's going to start on this date. This is, I just messed that up. This is tomorrow. I'm recording this on a Saturday, so this is picking the first Sunday after I've selected this. And we're going to start it at 10:00 a.m. Okay, so this is going to run every Sunday at, no, that's not right. I want this to be 09. And I want this one. It's not playing nice. To be 55. So at 9:55 is when I want to start that 5-minute countdown. And what's it going to do? What's the action? So down here in the action, we can select macro, default collection, start countdown. So now at 9:55 on every Sunday, it's going to call this macro, which we've already tested, and we know that it's going to start that countdown. Okay? Now notice over here next to our macro, we now have a calendar item that tells you that this macro is scheduled to be run. Okay? So that's the 5-minute countdown start. All right, so let's add another one. And we're going to call this start countdown count. Man, if I could spell, if only. Start countdown buffer video. All right, and when's that going to run? That's going to be every Sunday. And this has to be changed every week because the buffer video size, the length, changes week to week because it's a different video every week. So you just need to go in here and calculate how far back from 10 o'clock you want that to start. So in this case, we're going to start it at 9. And it's going to be 58 and what, 30, well, colon, 33. Holy moly. So that's 1 minute and 27 seconds before 10 o'clock. And I might actually start this a second earlier just to make sure. So I'll start it at 32 because there's usually a little delay at the end of the video. Anyway, so that's going to start on Sunday, 9:58:32 a.m. And what's it going to do? It's going to run this macro from our default collection to start the countdown buffer video. All right. And now we have one more. And that is to get us into our worship song automatically. So let's create another one. We're going to call it Start Service. And this will be every Sunday at 10 a.m. And what's it going to do? It's going to go to capture. No, it's going to go to, playlists, right? This is our playlist. So it's going to go to our Sunday service playlist, and it's going to start right here on Worship Start. It's going to go here. So it's always going to go to this Worship Start slide, which will get us right into the first slide of the song. All right, so that's how we do it. Those are the 3 calendar events that we create so that every Sunday at 5 of it starts the countdown, and then at the appropriate time it runs this macro to start the buffer video, and then right at 10 o'clock it starts this and it goes right into this Worship Start slide, which starts our service. All right, so what I'd like to do now is to test this. Let's make sure it's all working. So I'm going to create 3 new ones to test them right now. Well, let's say we want the 5-minute countdown. It's currently 9:16 p.m. for me, so I'm going to say I want to start the countdown at 9:20. So let's create a new event. This time we're going to go 12, today's the 7th. I want it to start at 9:20 p.m. And what do I want to do? I want it to start this start countdown macro. All right, so there's that one. And we'll call this Start Countdown Test. So it's only going to do once. I haven't selected any repeats here. So it's only going to do it once. And then we're going to create another one. This will be our video test. Wow. Not sure what happened there. and I want this to be 12:07 at 9, let's see, 50. So 9:53:32. That's a minute before 9:55. And it's going to run this macro, start the countdown. All right, so that's the video test. And then the last one is to service test. And that will be right at 9. Jeez, 55. This thing doesn't like me very much. 9:55 p.m. And it's going to go to playlists, Sunday service, worship start. Okay, so we're getting close. So now these are ready to go. So I'm going to close my calendar, come up here and start my rolling announcements. And I will pause the video and start it up just before 9:50. Okay, I'm not sure how close I am to 9:20. Did I say 9:50? So I apologize, you guys. I don't know where I got 9:50 for my test, but you can see I changed this now to be 9:25. It's 9:24 right now. So this will start in less than a minute to start the countdown, and then the video test will start at 9:28:32, and then the service will start right at 9:30. So that's my representation of tomorrow morning at 9:55 a.m. Okay, so I'm going to close this and just let this go, and let's see what happens. And I apologize for the silence, the long silence, but we're going to, this should start when this turns to 9:55 or 9:25. Wow. There it is. And the countdown started. So the countdown started right at 9:25 like I asked it to. And now when this gets below 3 minutes, it should turn yellow. And then when it gets to 1 minute and 27 seconds from 9:30, it should start the video. Okay, so I'm going to pause this and we'll come back right around the 3 minute mark. Okay, so here we are. We're close to 3 minutes. And now it should turn yellow. And now when we get to 1 minute and 27, 28 seconds, something like that, the video should start. Now I did turn the video sound down, and I'll show you how I did that after we see the countdown working. But, well, heck, we got time, so I'll just show you. So down here, I opened our media, and I came down here to our countdown buffer video. If you right-click in here on the media, you can go to Inspector. Okay? And in here, there are these tabs across the top. This is the audio tab. So in here, I just took the volume way down. Okay, same here, volume way down. Another thing that we want to make sure of, if I go here to Properties, we want to make sure that the playback is set to stop and not loop. Otherwise, when it gets to the end, it would start over. Okay, so that was right-click on this slide and go to Inspector. Okay, so I'm going to close my media now. All right, so we're pretty close. So when it gets to 127 or 128, it should clear the announcements layer and show the video. So let's see that. There it is. Okay, so it cleared the announcements layer and it showed the video. So one problem that one problem that we have is that the props layer is still showing, but it should, because the props layer is in the center, right? If I go to my center screen, that's showing my prop. and my outside screen and my live stream are showing the countdown. All right, so when this gets below 1, it should turn red, and it did. And because it has that black outline, you can still see it even if the background is red. So that's looking pretty good. Now when we get to 0, and really it shouldn't be right at 10 o'clock, it should be about 2 seconds before 10 o'clock that it comes over here and selects this first worship slide. So instead of 10 o'clock, it should be 9:58 or 9:59:58. Okay, and I apologize. I'm bouncing around on my chair, not forgetting that I'm recording this. So here, when we get to 0, this is the end of the video. So now it'll go black, and then boom, we'll go straight into our first worship slide, which we did. And if I go to my widescreen, there's the slide being shown. Okay, so that is the 5-minute countdown. That's how we set it up. There is one piece that's missing, and we will add that now. So I'm going to clear this. And that piece is sound. Now, when we live stream our countdown, we can't live stream the Spotify. So we have to use our own internal music inside ProPresenter to play that's non-licensed, right? To play during the countdown. So if I go to my audio tab, now that you've imported the audio files, you should find this pre-service countdown playlist. And in here you'll find these items. So what we want the countdown to do is to automatically choose one of these items. And if I set this playlist to run to be shuffled, then it'll just pick one. Okay? So we need to add this audio to our start of our countdown, and we can just do that in the macro. So let's come over here to our start countdown, right click on this, we'll add an action. We're going to add an audio playlist action, and we're going to select the countdown playlist. So it's going to play the countdown playlist as soon as it starts the countdown. Okay? So the only thing the operator will need to do is turn off Spotify when the countdown starts. And that's it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned how I set up the 5-minute countdown. Is not all that difficult or technically difficult, but I hope you saw how easy it is to set that up. So the next video that I'm going to create is to talk about the reflow editor, and I'll show you how to take slides that we have like this and reposition some things on them. We have some slides in here that let me see if I can find one that I don't care for the way that it's laid out. It doesn't really wrap properly. There are some lines at the bottom of one slide that should be at the top of the next slide, that kind of thing. And that's where the reflow editor will really shine and help us to get those things in order very quickly. Okay? So I hope to see you then. Thanks for watching.